is Andrew Perlott with MasteringBodyWeightExercise.com, and today we're talking about what kind of strength and what kind of muscle you can achieve naturally, and how strength and muscle don't necessarily follow each other. So people generally tell me that I'm a pretty strong guy. I'm not by any means a professional weightlifter or professional strength athlete, but I like to play, and my play requires me to be strong, and so I've gotten stronger doing that play. I also do some exercise, body weight type stuff, that makes me stronger to supplement, to make my play better. But I am obviously not a very big guy. No one's gonna look at me and think that, oh, here's here's the mighty Andrew. No, I don't have the bodybuilder physique, despite being pretty strong. So how does that work exactly? So I want to dive into that, and what can you naturally achieve without steroids and growth hormones and a lot of the things that people rely on to make them large. So the last few generations have had a fairly skewed perspective on what a normal, strong human can look like. When I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s, guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone were doing all these action movies. They were jacked, they were huge, and people thought, oh, well, that's doable. But we all now know that they were pretty much doing steroids. Today, a lot of people doing infomercials are on steroids too, but they won't tell you that because they just want you to believe that if you use their magic whey protein powder, you'll look just like them. It's probably not the case. A lot of these physiques are probably not realistic if you are not taking steroids or some kind of growth hormone, because your body just isn't going to put on that much muscle mass. So when everyone around you is a potential steroid user and probably isn't going to be truthful about it, how do you know what a realistic physique actually is? Well, pharmaceutical steroids weren't even invented until the mid-1930s, so if you just look before that, you can actually see what normal, strong men looked like. The father of modern bodybuilding was born in 1867. He went by the stage name Eugene Sandow, and he was a German who pretty much invented physical culture. There were no growth hormones for Eugene Sandow to take, nor steroids or any supplement. He wasn't taking any protein in beyond what his whole foods diet was giving him, and yet he is a very strong guy, and he could break 3 chains wrapped around his chest by flexing his muscles. With strength like that, he's pretty much putting every modern bodybuilder to shame. Keep in mind that the fitness equipment many people rely on to do bodybuilding today didn't even exist, so a lot of his training was calisthenics and he used a few dumbbells. So the point being that while you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you are just not using any supplements and not using any growth hormones or steroids, you can be quite muscular. But have you ever wondered how it is that someone who carries very little muscle mass on them can be dramatically stronger than someone who carries a lot more muscle? Bruce Lee may be the best example who's ever lived. He was a relatively small guy, very little muscle mass, and yet the striking power of him was out of this world. I've got nothing on Bruce Lee, but I'm always surprised when guys with a lot more muscle mass on them than me can't do the stuff that I can do. This is a human Turkish getup. Almost no one can do this, even really jacked guys. And it's kind of like, why is that? And well, outside of just general training modality differences, there's actually a very specific reason why big guys sometimes can't do the stuff that small guys can. Guys like this can be very strong and fairly small because gains in strength and gains in muscle mass do not march forward in perfect lockstep. So if you want to be stronger, you should train your muscles, right? No, if you want to be stronger, if that's your ultimate goal, then you need to start making your nervous system the center of your training. The relationship between the nervous system and the muscles are kind of like the relationship between an electrical circuit, which is like the nervous system, and a light bulb, which is like the muscles. The higher you turn up the wattage on the circuit, the brighter the bulb is going to get. Now, a bodybuilder primarily trains his muscles, trying to get them bigger. And that's analogous to trying just continuously buying a bigger or brighter bulb and plugging it into your circuit. On the other hand, a pure strength athlete who's trying to avoid gaining muscle mass because he views it as something that's going to slow him down will essentially find the smallest bulb that he can and continuously attempt to pour more wattage into that bulb by improving his nervous system. See, the muscles that we think of as the source of our strength are made up of what are called motor units. And motor units are made up of a single motor neuron and all muscle fibers which run throughout the muscle. And when you contract a muscle, some of the motor neurons will fire and contract their fibers. But it's extremely unusual for all of the motor neurons to fire. Usually you have to be electrocuted or have some other dramatic event happen. But the more motor units you can recruit, the stronger you'll be. The only way you're going to get more recruitment is by training neurologically. You'll never reach your genetic potential for strength if you do not both increase your muscle mass as well as train neurologically to increase your recruitment of motor neuron. But that doesn't explain why a big guy like this can break chains or bend iron bars, but yet there are guys at your local gym who are probably bigger than him and have more muscle mass who can't do nearly what he can do. At the risk of oversimplifying, basically, you only need to do one thing if you want your muscles to grow, and that is you need to completely and totally drain the chemical energy out of your cells. And if you do this over and over, completely draining your muscle cells of that chemical energy, your body will respond by beginning to stockpile that chemical energy in those cells, continuing to expand the storage capacity that you have. And this is what is seen in us as increased muscle growth. This only works if you're willing to do really hard, sustained work that leaves you shaking and completely exhausted. Gentle stuff isn't going to do it because if the exercise is too low in intensity, the energy can actually come from fatty acid stores, and your stores in your muscle will be preserved. And also, if you're just doing really intermittent work, like low reps and then rest for a while and then go back to it, you won't grow your muscles because the chemical energy in the cells regenerates really rapidly while you rest. So you never really get into that dangerously low category that causes the storage capacity to increase. It's extremely easy to do this kind of work at the gym with what I would call low skill activities, such as most of the weight machines that you'll find at a gym. You just sit down and you bang out these reps until you can't do anymore, to failure or to close to failure, and you'll get muscle growth. But with that kind of a training regimen, you'll likely be leaving a lot of your potential neurological growth and motor neuron recruitment on the table, which means that you won't be as strong as you could be if you chose high skill activities. If you want the most rapid growth of your nervous system as possible, you need to throw things at it like balance and coordination and gravity and body placement, stuff that are really complex, dynamic exercises. Old school strongmen generally divided their time between training high skill activities that stress the nervous system and just monotonous exercises that grew muscle. Pure strength gains are a lot like learning a skill. You want to be doing your skill as often as possible, but you don't want to do it for too long, 1 to 3 reps per set. And you want to do as many sets as possible, but with plenty of rest between those sets. Gaining muscle mass, on the other hand, requires you to work pretty much to the point of failure. You want to be doing 8 to 15 reps per set. Different studies looking at different exercises have found somewhere between the 8 to 15 range was ideal for muscle growth. But you really only want to do 2 sets because you want each of those sets to leave you completely exhausted. So if you're doing that, 2 sets should really be enough. Only take a short rest between sets, but when you're done with those 2 sets, you're done. Only train it really twice a week per muscle group and give yourself a lot of sleep because that's when muscle growth occurs. You want to build muscle? If you're smart, you'll spend as little time as possible training so you can spend as much time as possible resting, sleeping, and growing. you just are concerned about the strength, you will train way more so that you can get the maximum amount of neural training in. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Just know that you can be very strong and you can put on muscle if you want. You're not going to look like Arnold, but you can make big gains. And I hope that you will like and share this video, and please subscribe. So, see you later.